to prevent others from using the inventions and to use that right to negotiate payment in returns for using them. These are called intellectual property rights. For example, books, paintings, films come under copyrights. Eligible inventions can be patented. Brand names can be registered as trademarks. In order to provide a basic awareness about the role of IPR in the modern world, we welcome you to the national webinar on intellectual property rights in the world, jointly organized by Department of Economics and IQAC of Sacred Heart College Chalakudi and St. Joseph College Autonomous Irinalakuda. Let us start the webinar with a prayer by Femina Joy of First Year BA Economics, St. Joseph Autonomous College, Irinalakuda.
പ്രാർത്ഥനകൾ പാതയിൽ പൂകളാൽ വിരിയണം പൂവിരിഞ്ഞ വീഥികൾ പുണ്യവീഥികളാകണം പുണ്യവഴികളിലൂടെ നാം യാത്ര ഇന്നും ചെയ്യണം യാത്ര ചെയ്യും വേളയിൽ ഈശ്വരനെ ഓർക്കണം ഈശ്വരനാണിന്ധനം ഈശ്വരനാണിൻ ഫലം ഈശ്വരനാണിന്ധനം ഈശ്വരനാണിൻ ഫലം.
Thank you, Femina, for that brilliant start. I'm Krishnakiti NS of 3rd BA Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi. Now I invite Dr. Shirley Jose K, EQC Coordinator and Associate Professor, Department of Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, for delivering the welcome.
Thank you, Krishnagidi. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, madam.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Distinguished speaker of the day, Mr. Vishal Kataria, expert and attorney practicing in intellectual property rights. Dr. Chako Jose P, head of the Department of Economics at Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi. Ms. Daisy, head of the Department of Economics, St. Joseph's College, Autonomous, Irinalakuda, who are co-conveners of this webinar. Dr. Nigel George, IQAC Coordinator, St. Joseph's College. Webinar coordinators, Mr. Nigel Jacobi and Ms. Jomol Johnson, executive members, students, and participants. A very warm welcome to the national webinar on intellectual property rights in the digital world, jointly organized by the Department of Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and the Department of Economics, St. Joseph's College, Irinalakuda. We all know that the rapid growth of the digital economy, enabled by broadband penetration, coupled with increases in computing power and storage, has created global markets for contents and right holders. This webinar is intended to educate the participants about the role of intellectual property rights in the modern digital world. Today, we have a reputed resource person who is a lawyer by profession and specializes in patent, trademark, and copyright law. He is none other than Mr. Vishal Kataria, who is a personality with world-class education in law and has a rich experience of working in top law firms, both in India as well as globally. Since the detailed introduction of the resource person will be made subsequently, let me, on behalf of Department of Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and Department of Economics, St. Joseph's College, Autonomous, Irinalakuda, wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Vishal Kataria, to this national webinar on intellectual property rights in the digital world. If I remember correctly, Mr. Vishal was the resource person for intellectual property rights at a session at Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune, when I attended a refresher course there in 2006. I also remember that Mr. Vishal was a resource person at the National Seminar on Intellectual Property Rights in India, which is organized by the Postgraduate Department of Economics of St. Aloysius College, Elthurut, Thrissur in 2006. So with all this, I heartily welcome Mr. Vishal Kataria to this national webinar. It is my pleasure to extend my heartfelt welcome to the HOD of Economics at Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, Dr. Chako Jose, and the HOD of Economics, Ms. Daisy, St. Joseph's College, Autonomous, Irnyalakuda, who are co-conveners of this webinar. I am extremely happy to welcome Dr. Nigel George, IQAC Coordinator of St. Joseph's College, Autonomous, Irnyalakuda, to this webinar. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. M.S. Geetha, webinar executive member, who will be proposing the vote of thanks in this webinar. I also welcome the webinar coordinators, Mr. Nigel Jacobi of Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and Ms. Jomol Johnson of St. Joseph's College, Irnyalakuda, to this webinar. I am glad to welcome the executive members, Ms. Ginny Thomas, Ms. Nicey Jose of Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and Ms. Beena, Ms. Anisha, and Ms. Reshma from St. Joseph's College. In addition, I'd also to welcome our chairperson, that is the chairperson of Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, Ms. Krishna Geethi, will also be moderating the question and answer session, and Ms. Bhadra Bajaj, first BA student of St. Joseph's College, Irnyalakuda, who will be introducing today's speaker. Finally, it is my proud privilege to welcome all participants and students who are attending this national webinar, and I sincerely hope that today's session will give you a proper understanding of intellectual property rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley ma'am, for doing the honors. With immense pleasure, I also extend our cordial welcome to you to the webinar. Now for felicitation, I invite Dr. Nigel George, IQAC Coordinator of St. Joseph College Autonomous, Irnyalakuda.
Thank you. Good morning, all. It's our immense pleasure to coordinate a program in association with the Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and that too in a very relevant area, intellectual property rights in digital marketing and digital technology. Nowadays, the digital marketing or the digital technology is booming, especially in the lights of this COVID-19 pandemic. If you just look at the college itself or the teaching learning process itself, so many innovations and like emerging technologies are being used in the education in these days in last 1 year. We are designing different types of courses. We are having different types of methods for teaching or complementing teaching. But mostly, we are not aware about the possibilities of getting these intellectual property rights for these technologies or these designs or developments. So I think that today's session will actually enlighten our teachers and students, and it will give knowledge about, give awareness about the possibilities and opportunities there in development of this type of courses and technologies. So I wish all the best for the program, and I wish this program will be very useful for all the students and faculty members. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nigel sir. Our chief guest of the day is Vishal Kataria. In order to formally introduce our chief guest, I invite Ms. Bhadra Bajaj of First BA Economics, Joseph College Autonomous, Irnyalakuda.
Good morning, everyone. Respected principals and vice principals of St. Joseph's College Autonomous Iringalakuda, Kerala, and Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, Kerala, heads of Department of Economics of both the colleges. I feel grateful to introduce our esteemed chief guest of today's webinar, Vishal Kataria, owner of Kataria and Associates law firm and independent director of MTech Innovations Private Limited and a well-known resource person. Warm welcome to all the leading lights of this webinar and my dear participants. Today, our webinar is enriched with the presence of notable chief guest Vishal Kataria. He has completed his LLB from ILS Law College, Pune, and did his LLM from University of Bristol, UK, and Franklin Pierce Law Center, USA. He was the chair professor for intellectual property rights at the prestigious University of Pune from 2003 to 2008. He was the first appointee to the IPR chair and the youngest for any chair in this country. He received his law degree at ILS Law College, Pune. He stood second in the merit ranking in the University of Pune and was awarded the coveted DFID scholarship by the British government in recognition for his outstanding academic achievements and to study law in the University of Bristol, England. The University of Bristol is one of the most reputed universities in England with excellence to match the fame of Oxford and Cambridge. His master's course in law enabled him to deepen his knowledge in company law and intellectual property law, along with international contract and European law. He returned to India to work with a corporate law firm for almost a year, only to return to the United States to study Masters of Law. His focus of study was on intellectual property. He worked in the Atlanta office of Holland and Knight LLP, one of the topmost law firms in the US. He returned to India to start his networking and to lay the foundation for his law firm by traveling globally and making alliances internationally and domestically. As his achievements are infinite one, it is difficult to conclude it. Sir, we are extremely honored to have your presence, and I'm sure that you will all feel enriched with knowledge after the completion of this webinar. I welcome you all once again to the webinar and hope that you will have a great time ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bhadra. Now we move on to the much awaited, the crux of the webinar. In order to deliver the invited talk, I invite Vishal Katharia, LLB, LLM from UK, LLM from US, owner of Katharia and Associate Patent, Trademark and Attorneys, Pune, Maharashtra. Over to you, sir. Vishal, sir.
Sir, you are not audible. I think you need to switch on your mic.
So, good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible
Yes,
now.
sir. We can hear you.
So I was saying thank you so much for the gracious words. It is always nice to hear one's praise. Thank you so much. I thank all of you who have invited me to speak. I thank Sacred Heart Convent office bearers. I thank St. Joseph office bearers and all dear students. Now, the question I have in my mind first is my PPT to be shared or someone is sharing it? Um, Is my PPT being shared or should I share it online on the screen?
No, sir, we cannot see your presentation right now.
Okay, so because I can share it, or I have shared it, Professor Shirley, so she can also share it online.
Shirley, miss, would you please share the PPT?
Hello, is Nijil sir around?
Because
Nijil?
I'm on the phone, I can go on the computer and then maybe share the PPT if that is okay.
Okay, Vishal, I think you share the PPT by going on the laptop. That's better.
Okay, so I shall try to connect via the computer and hopefully. So I'll disconnect on the phone. Yeah. I'm trying to see how I can connect. Just give me 1 second, please.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm just trying to see how I can share this.
Okay.
Online. See if you can see it now.
No, we can't see it.
Yeah, because I'm trying to share the screen and because if I say share the screen, it is not sharing the PPT. So I thought I had given the PPT. I thought that would be shared.
Normally, the person who speaks used to
Okay, is
share.
there any tech person who can help me with, because we are all working from home, so I don't have any of my staff with me right now.
Okay. 1 second.
Yes.
So, miss, would you please send me the PPT? I can share.
I think Professor Shirley has the PPT, so she can share it with you. Or you share me your email ID and I'll share it with you.
Sir, my email ID is in the chat.
Yeah.
Can you see?
I'm sending it right away.
I'm so sorry for this. This was completely not planned. Um, I apologize.
Sir, I did read the mail.
Yeah. So I've sent you the email. Hopefully, you should get it in a minute or so.
Participants, please bear with us the delay and the PPT will be shared shortly.
Yeah. So I can actually start speaking, and we can start the session till the PPT is being shared, and hopefully things will work out.
You go ahead, Vishal.
All right. So I'm so sorry. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to speak for about 35 to 40 minutes on intellectual property rights. And primarily what you would see is a soft touching of about four important intellectual property rights. We're talking of patent, we're talking of trademarks, we're talking of copyrights, and we'll be talking of design rights. So the idea behind giving you sort of flavor of intellectual property is that many of you, I always say that all of us partake into intellectual property. As we get up in the morning and we start our day, we use toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoos, conditioners, moisturizers, etc. All of these are governed by, or all of these are protected by some form of intellectual property. So it could be either copyright, it could be either trademark, it could be either patent rights. So some of these rights will always cover what we call as intellectual property rights. So how one protects itself, or how should protect itself from intellectual property rights?
Vishal sir, you muted. Please unmute your mic, sir.
I'm so sorry. I hope things will settle down now. My apologies once again. So I shall start with a story till someone puts up the PPT to be shared. But the story goes like this, that when the Portuguese landed on the Malabar coast, there was a lot of hue and cry, but the story goes that one of the courtiers comes to the king and says, "Your Majesty, the foreigners are on the hill slopes and they're uprooting the pepper vines, because they will be taking the pepper vines with them to grow their own pepper in Portugal." And the king is not perturbed. He's very calm and composed. And he says, don't worry too much. They can take the vines, but how will they take our weather and the monsoon? So this goes on to show that intellectual property right is not only in what we do, but also in the form of our soil, our weather pattern, our geo indications. So that is why it's called geographical indications. So why are we discussing intellectual property right with young students? Why are we discussing it with the educational institutions? It's because that is where the IP of future will be generated. That is where intellectual property rights of future will be protected. So it is very important that we look at intellectual property rights from the perspective of students as well. So is the presentation on, or should I start the slides, reading through the slides? So we will continue till the slides are up, as I said. So intellectual property right requires three most important things.
As I said, kindly bear with me. The presentation will last for 35 minutes. I will sort of move slowly but steadily towards our goal first of patent, trademark, copyright, etc. But let us understand that this activity of interaction on IPR is needed for three important things. One is important because it will help to generate intellectual property. Second, it will help to protect intellectual property. So if we know more intellectual property, we can help to protect it. Third, we can commercialize it. I'll give an example. She came to me saying that I have a name of a particular leaf, and if a person has the gem, that person will become infertile. The moment you stop eating the gem, you're fertile again. Is this important? She asked me. And then, of course, as an IPR attorney, I said to her, well, you have generated something first, which is important, intellectual property, that you have generated something wherein people can have organic form of contraceptive rather than hormonal contraceptive. Secondly, we decided to file for a patent. Sorry?
Can I interrupt you for a moment? Sir, I have the PPT. Can I start sharing it?
Yes, please, start do that. You can directly go on PPT slide 4.
The participants may please need to get access to the PPT. Is my
Thank you.
screen clear?
Thank you.
Is the PPT being shared?
Yeah, we can
Hello?
see it.
Sir, can you see the PPT?
Yes, I can see it. So can we move to slide 4, please?
Is it the besides slide,
Yes.
sir?
Yes, thank you. And I simply do next, and we can move next one on. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir.
So basically, since I guess most of your students, so since all the students were born, India was changing. So in year 2005, India had to change to accept the international treaties, accept international conditions of opening up the Indian intellectual property system or regime. So what happened was, World Intellectual Property Organization started governing intellectual property laws of all the nations. Foreign players and Indian players became one in terms of treatment. So there was reciprocity. So Vishal Kataria filing a patent in India is equivalent to Vishal Kataria filing a patent in the US. I was not discriminated on the country I came from. So there was uniformity of laws as far as intellectual property law was concerned. Thirdly, because of this, the foreign and domestic industry started having serious investments into R&D facilities. And lastly, there was competition within the fraternity for a good output of intellectual property. Next slide, please. So, if you see what happened over the last 15, 16 years, because India was given time from year 2000 onwards, and finally the compliances had to be complete before the end of 2004. From 2005 onwards, we became an international intellectual property regime. So from that day onwards, winds of changes started flowing through the country. And we had industries which could not console themselves from only national mindset. We had to be international. We needed a global vision, if you can see. And we had to be aggressive, not very passive, in terms of what we were doing in R&D. And when I say R&D, the listeners or the viewers, please don't misunderstand that, well, I'm from Commerce Department, this is for science, or I'm from Law Department,
this is for core science or engineering, would be very narrow vision to view today's presentation or to listen to today's presentation. Because I have met various people from different walks of life who go on to become business people, who go on to join a company, who go on to do certain things, which is not necessarily not protected by patent or trademark or copyright. So eventually you will all generate, or you will all come across intellectual property rights which may need your input. So understanding this on a cursory level will help. So we came to, next slide please. We came to new era in the industry. And next slide please. Yeah. So what was the new era? The new era in the industry was changes in R&D culture, changes in the work culture, change in entrepreneurship, because we all have entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship was a very successful model even in India, wherein a larger company would tell a small group of their own employees or their own colleagues to start something different within the company. So it basically became an incubation cell within the company. And the industry started playing an important role in innovation, because a lot of people, the famous example is pharma industry, when they started as copycat drug makers, but as they started making money, they started investing serious amounts for R&D purposes. Mostly, they started creating a corporate culture to share ideas, to allow ideas to blossom, and to discuss these ideas, which so far was missing in India. Next slide, please. So, irrespective of what industry you are from, or what industry you may join, these two things become very important as far as industries are concerned. They have major responsibilities. One, research which will lead to innovation and technology. And second important responsibility is to protect these outcomes of research and technology. Next slide, please. And the next slide, please. So, suddenly, the Indian industry, whether it is engineering, whether it is software, whether it is homespun industry, cottage industry, found a new religion. In my parlance, in terms of a teacher and students' parlance, they found a new religion, and the religion was called innovation. So innovation has almost become the new religion of 20th and 21st century. So we not only discuss profit and loss, we don't even discuss research and development, but we will also discuss what goes into a R&D sector. Next slide, please. So typically I get questions like, how many ideas do you need to have a successful paying commercialized innovation? So the industry has come up with a ballpark figure of about 3,000 rough ideas can maybe generate one successful idea which will generate money for the company or for the inventor. So we are talking of having lots of bright ideas. Next slide, please. And this slide, the next one, kind of narrows down what we are talking. So I'm sure all of you have heard the story, the folk tales, or the stories when we were kids about kissing a frog who turns into a prince. So Mr. Art Fry of 3M was asked, and this was his typical reply. He said, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find that one prince which will give you everything. That is the reason 3M invested a lot of time, money, and energy into innovation. And they're one of the very successful model companies which
earn 30 to 40% of the revenue only from licensing of intellectual property. Next slide, please. You can jump one slide and move to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So let us jump into number games now. Let us jump into one or two slides which tells you what are the and what are the corporate spendings internationally and nationally on intellectual property. Next slide. So this particular slide is not only important for a company, but it is also important for educational institutions. I work with many educational institutions for filing their patents, and basically why they need to file or protect the IP, whether it's a company or an educational institution, is for this reason. If you are students and you want to join an educational institution, then there are certain educational institutions in India which put on their website the number of patents they have filed, the number of trademarks they have filed, the number of copyrights they have filed. Now, this is done for two reasons: to attract students to come and learn in their educational institutions, and attract human resource, good teachers, good coordinators to join the institution, because the institution is telling them that we will invest in your ideas. We will spend money to protect your ideas. We have a culture of coming up with intellectual property ideas. Similarly, companies, they do the IP game for four important reasons, which are on the slide. First, of course, revenue. So nothing that a company does is bereft of the fact that they have to make money, they have to make revenue. So to get decent revenue, intellectual property right form the backbone of licensing opportunities or making things indigenously, etc. Secondly, it gives you defensive rights because it allows you to do what you want to do freely without worrying that somebody else file against you for using intellectual property. Thirdly, first reasons. It gives opportunities for your company to go after competitors and seek revenues from them. And lastly, you get good HR resources if you have a culture of intellectual property rights. Next slide, please. So these are the three important advantages of intellectual property portfolio, irrespective. I mean, as I said, I work with students, and irrespective what is their background in terms of the knowledge stream, they can come up with ideas. I recently had a very young student. She was 19, and she's from commerce stream, and she came up with a very interesting idea of automatically rolling the yoga mat under the I don't know what you call it, but in Pune, the gyms, we call it a step. It's made out of plastic. It's a stepper on which either doing the aerobic exercise or some stepping exercises. So she said, why not combine these two and have the yoga mat fit under it, which can, with a click of a button, roll the yoga mat under it. And when you need the yoga mat, you can simply pull the yoga mat out of the step. Now, she is not a science student. She's not an engineering student. She's not a patent attorney, but she had a wonderful idea. She got this machine made. She came and filed for a patent. And now she's selling this technology to about 70 gyms in Pune and about 600 gyms in India. She's barely 21-year-old now. When she filed for a patent, she was 19. So this is what you can do. You can attract venture capitalists. They can come and invest in your idea if you have a good idea. You can build reputation, even though you may fail in the business, but you can build reputation that you're an innovator and you would be innovating certain good things, and people would be interested to see what next, what next. I recently had another interesting client she's a young mother, and he would cry in the middle of the night for a feed. And she was using a feeding bottle and a formula, and as some of us know, that you have to wake up in the middle of the night, warm the milk, or have a pre-boiled milk, mix the formula with the water, shake it all up. And here is what she created. She created a bottle with a sieve. So ready-made sieve like this. So this and one which the pre-boiled water, the sieve goes on top of it. So it becomes like this. And there's another part which will go on top of this. So formula is kept in this, water is kept in this two fits, the nipple goes on the top, you can simply shake it in the night and feed your baby. So you do not need to worry because there is a sieve in here, in the middle, which will not allow the formula to fall in the water beforehand and spoil the mixture. So the formula remains dry in this, the water remains in this, the sieve protects the formula from water. When you want the formula to fall in the water, you simply turn the sieve and the formula falls inside. Now this, again, from a young mother who has no background in terms of science or engineering or anything, but she has a wonderful idea. She got this made on a printer, and this now we are marketing this in India for baby products, and it is doing very, very well. So the idea is that anybody can get an idea. The idea is that you have to work on your idea. And the last idea is you have to protect your idea. So we come to the next slide. And this is the most important slide. And here on we start actual intellectual property right. So what is intellectual property right? It is anything that is the product of your intellect. That is it. Nothing important or nothing complicated. It is simply the product of intellect. Next slide, please. Skip one slide, next one, please. Skip this one and next. Yes, thank you. So what constitutes intellectual property? I have given only 5, there are a couple more, but these are the most important intellectual properties. First is the king of intellectual property, patent. Second is the queen of intellectual property, which is trademarks. Thirdly, you have the prince of copyright, which is, prince of IP, which is copyright. And later on, you have trade secrets and design rights, etc., etc. So we will first start with the easiest one, which is trademark. So next slide, please. So I'm sure everyone would understand trademark rather quick because we use the products every day, we consume the products every day, and it is easy to understand. So what is a trademark? So trademark can be a word, aerial, it can be a design, it can be a logo, as you can see on the slide, it can be a picture or a symbol. So anything which can perform the function of a trademark is a trademark. As simple as that. Next slide, please. You can skip one and go to the next. Next one, please. Yes. So why do we need to previous? Thank you. The third max one. Yes, thank you. So why does one need to file a trademark? This is a clear example, if you can see it on your phone, if you can see it on your laptop, that my client is on the left called Thermax. It's an engineering company, a boiler company in Pune in India. And on the right, you have 3 different versions of the same name. You have first one in the circle max, the second one is the red and the blue, the last one is the red again. For these reasons, you need to file a brand name with the trademark registry in India or wherever you are doing your business. Because other people would be copying you and coming up with the same name but with different stylization. Next slide, please. So, why does a company need trademark? Once again, the same question. It is needed for the three things. It indicates the origin of the product, it indicates the quality of the product, and it basically differentiates two products. The easiest example would be a Colgate toothpaste. I know when I open the toothpaste that this is the toothpaste I like because I keep buying the same toothpaste, Colgate. Fine. Now imagine if I were to travel to Kerala. I come there and I see all toothpaste just white color with no indication whether it's Close Up or toothpaste or Colgate or Dabur or Baba Ramdev. How would I know which one of them is the Colgate tooth? That is the reason you have the brand. So as soon as you see Colgate in any pharmacy or any kirana shop, you will start saying, oh, this is the one I want because it indicates the origin. It tells me this is the product I like and it differentiates from Close Up or Dabur or anybody else. That is the function of a trademark. Next slide. A very brief slide. This is called what we call a practical slide, wherein you can how do we file a trademark. So very easy. You need to at least analyze 2 or 3 candidates that you like 2 or 3 names which you think would suit your product. Conduct a trademark search on the trademark registry, which is free, available online. You can do it on yourself, or you can ask me at the Then see whether the name is available. Suppose you come up with a toothpaste and you want to call it Far Off, or you want to call it Close Up. You just go trademark search, see that no, somebody else has filed for a trademark. Then you choose another option. And then whichever option gives you best result in terms of trademark search, select a name and nobody has used that name for that product, you can file for a trademark. Next slide, please. So trademark is valid for infinity. So first trademark renewal comes in 10 years, after which trademark has to be renewed every 10 years for infinity. So you can file a trademark and maybe your grandchildren or great grandchildren can use it. The examples could be, Ford Motor Companies or GE or Coca-Cola or Raymond or Tata as a brand. So it's a very, very solid trademark and people still use it even after more than 100 years. Next slide, please. So as I said, I will take questions at the end of the PPT, but I'm just giving you a few slides of all the intellectual properties. So if you have any questions, please note them down and ask me at the end of the PPT presentation. So the second important intellectual property, which again is very easy to understand, is copyright. So if I were to give you one sentence, then copyright has a very, very low threshold. And anything which is original anything work which is original can be filed for a copyright. Next slide, please. So this next slide, please. So these are the prerequisites for a copyright. All you need for a copyright is original work and fixed in a tangible medium. That means if I were to write a letter to one of you and I end my letter with my name and full stop, now that letter, as soon as it is completed on the piece of paper, now is worth a copyright. It has a copyright in itself.
So if you're writing letters to each other, if you're writing poems, if you're writing a short story, as soon as you finish writing it, a copyright subsides in it automatically. You do not need to file for a copyright. There is no compulsion to file for copyright protection. However, people do it for different economic reasons. Can I go to previous slide, please? Yeah. So if you see, this is the subject matter of copyright. What can be copyright? Any literary work. You write a letter, poem, short story, a large story, long story, scripts, manuscripts, theses, anything that you write in literary format can be filed as copyright. You have works, you have dramatic work, you have motion pictures and sound recordings. If any one of you is into music and or plays music, that could be part of copyright. Skip one slide and next, please. Yeah. So what is not protected by copyright? So this is an important slide. This is basically it about copyright. This slide explains everything in terms of cannot copyright. So titles can be copyrighted. So it could be title of the story, title of your book, title of the movies, etc. Now movies, yes, I'll explain you why later if you have a question. But anything which is short cannot be. Names cannot be copyrighted. I cannot copyright my name Vishal Katai. Short phrases like Dil Mange More for Pepsi or Thanda Thanda Cool Cool or slogans like that cannot be copyrighted. Because to copyright, you need literary work. And for literary work, you need little more than few words. So if you have very little words, the brevity of those words kills the copyright. So these are the examples of what can be copyrighted. Next slide, please. So in India, the term of copyright is life of the author plus 60 years. So it's a very, very long term of a copyright. So writers, poets, artists, people in the movie industry or music industry, they may enjoy very long rights, so their legal heirs will enjoy the fruits of the copyrighted work. Next slide, please. To create copyright. So first of all, understand you need original work. So what does original work mean? It should originate from you. You should not copy it from anybody. So as soon as you write your own original letter, imagine you're writing a letter to your beloved or your girlfriend or a boyfriend, then if it is original, as soon as you finish writing love, Vishal, period, that itself generates a copy. So the threshold is very low. Original does not mean it has to be fantastic out of the world. It does not mean like, once in a blue moon. No. Anything originates from you, which you have not copied, is original. Secondly, it has to be fixed in a format, tangible format, which you can see. So either in the form of an email, which can be retrieved, either on the piece of paper, which can be opened and seen or shown, or a floppy disk or a CD-ROM, anything which can be retrieved is more than good enough. And lastly, as soon as you add the C indication in the circle, it says that you have decided to copyright the work. And I repeat again, you need not file for a copyright unless there are economic reasons to do so. Next slide, please. Thank you. The third important intellectual property right is a trade secret. So one of the most important trade secret in the world, and I've been teaching for the last 20 years, and I've given the same example every year for last 20 years, is the recipe of Coca-Cola. So I'm sure all of you must have tasted Coca-Cola or consumed Coca-Cola. So that formula Coca-Cola is copyright, is trade secret. Now, what is a trade secret, or what can be a trade secret? Anything that you do which nobody should know, or which you do not want people to know, is a trade secret. So, for example, if I'm a lawyer, list of my clients could be trade secret. How I charge my clients could be a trade secret. If I am a business, then who supplies me raw material could be a trade secret. If I'm, a cook or a chef, my recipes could be trade secret. If I'm into food product industry, then my formulations, my recipe, how to make the bottled jam or a homemade wine could be a trade secret. So as I said, my mother-in-law is into making of wines. So she makes wines out of fruits and vegetables. You give her a beetroot and she will give you beetroot wine. You give her a pineapple, she makes you pineapple wine. So that recipe now that she has developed is her trade secret. She's not giving it to anybody. Some people freely give it, so that is no longer a trade secret. Next slide, please. You can skip one slide and next slide, please. So there's no law for trade secret. There is no protection that you can seek for trade secret. You simply have to call your secret a top secret, like you see in the films where people see on the file saying confidential or top secret. Honestly, that is the only way to protect trade secret. Simply because you are letting other people know that this is my secret. Do not access it. This I intend to keep as secret. Do not open it. And if somebody does open it or does access it, then that person is literally stealing the information. So you can file a case against that for robbery, for theft. However, in the US, there is a law, and I have given you the name of the case, a Kivani Oil Company. It's a very interesting case, and do not be under misconception that only lawyers read these cases. Some of these cases are so interesting that social scientists, economists, people like chartered accountants and company secretaries, they read a lot of these cases for getting some ideas as to how law functions or how intellectual property law functions. Next slide, please. So, as I said and indicated, all you need to know about how to protect the trade secret is very, very simple. If it is a book, your diary or a book or a file, say on top of it trade secret or confidential and restrict people from accessing it. So whether you're a company, a university, a small business, a large business, a homemaker, anybody who wants to keep anything secret, you mention it. Now, I'm sure the students among you will laugh at this, thinking, oh my God, if there is secret written on something, I'm opening it first thing. I want to know everybody else's secret. But that works in private lives. It doesn't work in corporate life or in business life, because then if you access something which you do not have access to, it will tantamount to theft or robbery. Next slide, please. So the fourth interesting aspect of today's intellectual property topic is design right. You all must be sitting on a chair, a sofa, or on a bed listening to this presentation. Whatever you're sitting on can be filed for design right protection. So what does design right protect is in the next slide, please. So design protection is given to shapes, configurations, patterns,
and ornamentation. So if I show you my glass, I'm drinking water, then the shape of the glass can be filed for design. The shape of the water bottle can be filed for a design. The shape of the chair I sit on, how does it look? Ornamentation can be filed for a copyright. Sorry, design right. This can be design right protected, a pen. So anything which inherently has a shape or a configuration can be protected under design rights, or anything which has a pattern on it. So you have certain bed sheets which can have wonderful patterns on it, or a bedspread that can be protected under design rights. Next slide, please. And the next, you can skip this. And then we come to the most important part of the presentation. This is what is patent. So if you see, this is the single largest item under intellectual property right, which has provided the maximum commercial benefit to the innovator. So whether it is India or abroad, if you have patents on your name, it is the key, most probably, to financial success, because people want to have what you have given to the society in the form of a patent. And as soon as you give the access to the patent and start earning royalty, you start making money. Next slide, please. So what is a patent? Next slide. Patent is a grant given by the state for a fixed period of time to an innovator. Next slide, please. And then, why are patents important? Or so I'm not getting the appropriate slide, so I'm just waiting for the slide to move. So many times students come to me and industries come to me and they ask me, what can be patented? I have an idea. Can I patent my idea? And the answer is yes, if you can conceptualize that idea. Yes. Thank you so much. Sorry for troubling you. Thank you so much. So we were going, what is a patent? So I already explained, patent is a grant. So when you say a grant, that means patent can be taken away for certain reasons, that maybe you have not informed the patent office of the correctness, you have misinformed the patent office, somebody else is the inventor before you. So for various reasons, patent can be revoked. It is always given to an inventor. If you see in this slide, I have highlighted certain words in red, which indicates importance of those words. And patent is lastly given only for an invention, not for a discovery. So E is equal to MC square is defining moment of physics in this world, but it is a discovery. It is not an invention. Therefore, that E is equal to MC square cannot be patented. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, many times, as I said, people come and say, I have an idea? Can I protect my idea? And the answer is yes, it can be protected depending on certain things. Most importantly, depending on whether can you conceptualize it on paper at least. Because please understand that patent office is not a lab. So all you need to do for a patent is prove it on paper, show that it works on paper, and that is it. I'll give you again an interesting illustration for this. I had again, very young student who came to me. He was an engineering student. He came to me with a mask. He said to me, sir, you wear this mask and you can swim underwater because this mask will give you oxygen. I asked him how. He said, well, there is a process of electrolysis through which
I can use water around you to generate hydrogen and oxygen. You can inhale oxygen and hydrogen will be released in the air or in the water. I was not very convinced, but he convinced me on paper. We filed for a patent. The patent office was convinced, but they wanted to see whether it really works. So the inventor and I, his lawyer, we went to the patent office and we said, well, if you want to see it work, just wear it and go underwater. But no examiner wants to put his life in peril. So if they are satisfied on paper, they need not see the actual product. They need not understand the working of the actual product. At the most, they ask you for a working model or a prototype. That is all. So 99%, you have to convince them on the paper that the idea works on the paper. Next one, please. Thank you. So there are only 3 important prerequisites for patent. That it has to be new. Your idea has to be new. It cannot be already used idea. Secondly, it has to be better than what others are doing currently. So that's why inventive step. You should be one step ahead of the current knowledge. And lastly, it should be applicable in industry. Somebody should be able to make it in the industry. So this, or a bottle of wine, so an industry can take this and make hundreds of these. Or industry can take the recipe from my mother-in-law and make hundreds and thousands of bottles of wine. Next slide, please. So are there any limitations on a patent right? The answer is yes, there are limitations on anyone's patent rights. And what are those limitations? First is research. If you come across any patent, you are free to use it for your research purposes. Research does not mean you need to have a lab. Research does not mean you need to have a license. I can do research at my house. I can do research in my office. You can do research wherever you are. You can simply take the item, open it up, saying you are doing research. As far as you are doing research, nobody can stop. Second is government use. Government can take your patent anytime they feel like it. So there is a huge risk when people invent in the industry of defense. And not just India, but elsewhere globally, government can step in and say to you, thank you very much, but we will take it from here. Now, governments across the world do not do it so rampantly, simply because nobody will otherwise invent anything for defense. But you should know that there is a limitation like that. Thirdly, if you file a patent and do not use it, still it can be revoked or cancelled for non-working or non-using of the patent. So I have explained you 4 limitations: government use, defense, and non-working, and research. Next slide, please. What is the term of a patent? So if you understood from all the IP we have heard today, only trademark can be renewed continuously. Copyright cannot be renewed after 60 years. Patent cannot be renewed after 20 years. So patent expires after 20 years. That is it. It cannot be renewed. Design expires after 10 years, can be renewed once for another 10 years. Next one, please. So international patent applications. Can we file an international patent application? Answer is yes. There are 2 ways. First, you can directly file it in whichever country you feel like. So you want to file a patent in the US, you can directly go to the US patent office and file your patent there. Or you can use a treaty provision of PCT, wherein you can file international application at the Indian patent office by paying the appropriate fee. Next, please. So how do you make money through patents is by three things. Sorry, this is management of patents. So you have to remember to pay the patent renewal fees. You need to pay renewal fee every year for the 20 years life of the patent. Secondly, you will have to continuously see if your competitors are using your patent for benefiting themselves. And thirdly, you can see the opportunities of licensing. Can you license your patent to somebody who needs it? So these three things are needed to effectively manage patents. Next, please. So why are patents so complicated to read is the example here. So this gentleman is telling, this gentleman is having a conversation with a lady and saying diaphragm contraction, relaxation, da da da, which effectively means breathing. So many a times people find it very cumbersome and complicated to read patents, but that is because it is the way it is drafted by the lawyers. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. My apologies if we went in too fast because it's a very vast topic and I wanted to give you flavor of each form of intellectual property. So thank you so very much for having patience and staying with me. If you have any questions, I shall be happy to answer.
Thank you, Vishal sir, for that informative session. Now we move on to the Q&A session. Participants may please raise your queries to Google Meet chat box or YouTube comment section. So I have already received a question from Sharat Gangwar. Can I read it out, sir?
Yes, please.
He's asking, what is the role of ethics in the area of intellectual property?
What is the role of?
Ethics in the area of IP.
Ethics. Okay. So, I mean, ethics and morality are part of our lives. However, I cannot enforce ethics on anyone. I can give an example like ethics. I can say conflict of interest is one of the very, very important factors. Now, since Kerala just came out of elections, you will see many candidates having businesses which benefit if they get elected. Now, this is part of ethics. This is part of conflict of interest. That if I'm a businessman and if I'm also a politician, then would it help my business if I win the elections? If the answer is yes, then there is a conflict of interest. There is a problem with ethics. So same with intellectual property rights. I think most ethical, one of the most ethical issues of intellectual property right is giving the due respect to the co-contributor. That you may be a team of 4 people working on something. So ethically, it means that all 4 of you should own the intellectual property right in the proportionality of the help. Now imagine one person is poor and cannot contribute monetarily. So it is unethical then to divest that person from intellectual property. So you cannot say, oh, Mr. Vishal, you did not contribute money. You were just being present there to discuss. So you will not own the intellectual property. Only 3 of us will own it. So that sort of ethics would come into picture in intellectual property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can I move on to the next question? The
Yes,
question
please.
is, according to NEP 2020, National Education Policy 20, vocational education will give students a chance to learn employment skills at very young age and reduce their interest to go for higher education. Can this provision be harmful to IPRs?
No, anything with students cannot be harmful to IP. The whole idea is that creating awareness, creating educational opportunities, creating higher educational opportunities will never hurt intellectual property. So the more the students explore through the system of education or outside of the system of education is going to be beneficial. And intellectual property right is personal. So if I own intellectual property right, I will benefit not only myself, but the society, because I give you a better pen, I'll give you a better bottle, I'll give you better something which is not available today. Thank you.
So we have one final question. How costly it is to file an IPR rights?
Oh, that is very, very important question. IPR attorneys are rich, so it is expensive. But jokes aside, well, it depends. It depends on which lawyers you go to. But patent filing is fairly expensive because it is a very formidable right. It is a very massive form of intellectual property right. So if I could give you a ballpark figure, for education institutions or students, normally law firms charge 50% less than what otherwise they charge commercial or businesses. So it is expensive, but its rewards are far more higher than the expenses you incur for filing intellectual property.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I hope the participants do not have any more questions. So now we move on to almost the close of the webinar. I invite Dr. M.S. Geeta, webinar executive member and Department of Economics, St. Joseph College Autonomous Irinalakuda, for delivering the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Krishna Gedi. Good morning, all. As all good things for giving their support and guidance to conduct this webinar. I would like to extend a special thanks to the laudable principal, Dr. Sister Reena Itiachan, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, for their valuable support in this webinar. I thank you, the entire sisters, for their sincere prayers for the successful conduction of this national webinar. It is better to have less thunder in the mouth and more lightning in the hand. It is the apparent rights and explain how important it is to be aware of it in the field of academics. Thank you, sir. I must mention our deep sense of gratitude to our beloved convener of this webinar, Dr. Chako Jose P., Head, Department of Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, for assisting and encouraging all of us to organize this event successfully. Sir, we are fortunate enough to get the guidance from you. Delighted with this informative webinar. Thank you, sir. I also wish to express my gratitude to Dr. Shirley K, IQAC Sacred. Thank you, ma'am, for inspiring national webinar. I would also like to extend my special thanks to Dr. Nigel George, IQAC Coordinator, St. Joseph College Autonomous, Irinalakuda, for providing encouragement with your fabulous felicitation words. Thank you, sir. I wish to profound my gratitude to our endearing ma'am, Ms. Daisy PK, Head, Department of Economics, St. Joseph College Autonomous, Irinalakuda, for paying your valuable attention and also suggesting your opinions to organize this event. Ma'am, you endow with us an excellent webinar which is an interesting and meaningful one. Thank you, ma'am. I also like to convey my thanks to our beloved webinar coordinators, Mr. Nigel Jacobi, Department of Economics, Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and Ms. Jomol Thomas, Department of Economics, St. Joseph College, Autonomous, Irinjalakuda, and executive members from both the colleges for their unflinching support and coordination to organize this national webinar in a successful manner. Last but not least, I extend my immense thanks to our technical team, Sneha and Babida, and our loving students, Krishnagiti, Badra Balraj, and Femina Joy, without whom the dream of national webinar cannot be attained. So thank you, dear ones, for your extensive contribution, as no program can become successful with a single person. So to end with, I thank our astonishing students and participants who have turned up in great numbers to reach the height of success to this webinar. With this warm words, we move to the end of today's webinar. Thank you all. Please fill the feedback form. The link is provided in your inbox. Certificates will be issued within a week. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geet. With that, we come to the end of National Webinar on IPR in Digital World, jointly organized by Department of Economics and IQAC of Sacred Heart College, Chalakudi, and St. Joseph College, Autonomous, Irinjalakuda. Our sincere apologies for the technical delays and glitches that you've beared, and hope all the participants had a fruitful session. Thank you for joining us and for your kind cooperation and enthusiastic participation. Please fill the feedback form to get the certificates. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Lovely. I shall leave now. Is that okay?
Okay. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.